Today I want to talk about this ACT Mod Twin Disc. It is a brand new clutch to the market. They're unveiling it right now in SEMA 2025. I received this as a prototype part from Advanced Clutch Technologies about a year ago, and I've run it for several thousand miles now, and I want to give you guys my honest review of how it performs. As a comparison, I have my original competition twin disc. It's a stage 2 twin disc. I want to use this as kind of a reference for most clutches that are out there on the market. This one you can't buy anymore. Competition was sold to McLeod. This is still very similar to a lot of McLeod's clutches, and there are similar variants of it. I would say this is pretty generic as to what you would get buying any of the twin discs that are on the market right now, whereas the ACT clutch is kind of in a realm of its own, and you'll see that in the differences in design and the differences in how they perform. Right off the bat, the first thing to note is the difference in weight. The ACT Mod Twin Disc is extremely light, and you can also see from the design they packed what little weight there is as close to the center as possible, so that really helps get your rotating inertia down. This clutch, the competition twin disc, is 41 pounds. The ACT Mod Twin is only 26 pounds, which is pretty incredible for a clutch this size. You'll see the material differences and the extra weight reduction that they did with the machining ops are what make the difference between these two clutches. I want to start off going over the pressure plate. You can see we have 9 bolts that go around the outside of this. This is an aluminum 2-piece pressure plate. So you have an aluminum exoskeleton that houses your diaphragm spring. These diaphragm springs are adjustable, so if you need to hold a little bit more torque than what I've got here, ACT can make tweaks, set these up a little bit different for you. I would highly recommend just calling them or emailing them. On this aluminum exoskeleton, you have steel wear brackets going around the aluminum standoffs. This is to help prevent wear or excessive wear from the steel mid plates moving around as you're actuating the clutch. This is extremely light, and also I love the yellow paint. You can see all the dust on here. This is just friction material. So this is the first steel plate. You can see some hot spots developing. This is also extremely light. They take a lot of time to pocket everything that they can around this circumference. Let's compare that to the competition twin disc here. So you have a stamped steel 1-piece pressure plate, diaphragm spring, your first steel plate, and the pressure plate exoskeleton are all 1 piece here. See a lot of hot spots. This is definitely quite a bit heavier than the Mod Twin Disc, just in that singular component. I had to step away for a second, but now let's go over some more of the differences between these clutches. So with the friction discs exposed, you can see the differences in the center hubs between these two. The competition twin is a solid center hub, whereas the Mod Twin Disc is a sprung center hub. The springs within this center hub are there to attenuate a lot of the high frequency vibration that's being emitted by the engine. And I noticed a huge difference between the solid center hub of this competition twin and the sprung center hub of the Mod Twin Disc. What I noticed was that I no longer had rattle in the gear train and idle, which is really annoying and caused me to increase my idle speed up to 950 RPMs with this solid center disc. Now I'm able to idle as low as 650 to 700. I am running stock cams, so I can idle pretty low and have a nice smooth idle, and there's no rattle coming from the gearbox anymore, which is fantastic. Also at higher speeds, I would get some gear rattle. Some of that's shifter, some of that's solid engine mounts. I do hear a little bit of it with this Mod Twin Disc, but it was extremely loud with the competition twin, and loud enough that my girlfriend even commented on it after I rebuilt the truck with this clutch, that the drivetrain was significantly quieter. So looking at the friction discs here, you can see that they're nearly the same width. There's a slight difference in diameters, but overall pretty similar. The ACT Mod Twin does have splines on the inside of the friction disc, and that's where the mod name really comes from. So Advanced Clutch Technologies has put a lot of work in making their clutch components modular, so you can take this center hub and swap on a bunch of different friction plates. You can use it with a lot of different flywheels and pressure plate combinations because they use this universal spline in a whole lot of modular parts. What does that really mean for the consumer? It means that you get really good parts that have a lot of research and development costs dumped into them, but they cost the same or less than bespoke design parts for your drivetrain because they're able to use parts that they've already developed that they know work. So this T56 hub can be used with a lot of different engine and drivetrain combinations of T56. And all they have to do is change the flywheel and the pressure plate, and you could put this same hub behind an LS, behind an RB, behind a Coyote, anything that you'd want to run T56 with. And you can also make tweaks to these to optimize it a little bit more for your individual setup. I will say ACT is also offering this clutch in a full race variant that has a solid center hub. That's one of the main differences. They also increase the diaphragm pressure a little bit on the spring. So if you are wanting full race, you can get that solid center hub with this. I think though, for most people's street and sometimes race applications, this is the way to go. It's going to be a lot quieter. The road manners are phenomenal. So looking at the steel mid plates on these, you'll notice that both have these spring tabs that help center the mid plate between the clutch discs. It stops the plate from rattling and it makes sure that it doesn't rub any of the friction plates. There's a huge difference in thickness. If you measure them, the competition twin came out at a little over 1/2 inch, whereas the ACT Mod Twin is about 1/4 inch, a little less than quarter, 0.21. So substantial weight savings there. Here's the second friction plate. These are identical. You can install them in either location. The ACT flywheel has some really nice undercuts to it. They put a lot of effort in machining away all the weight towards the outer rim to keep the inertia of this flywheel down. They've got some through holes to help lighten it further, and they have an undercut on the friction side to further reduce weight. The ACT Mod Twin doesn't use dowel pins like the competition clutch does. It uses this outer ring to center the pressure plate. Moving on to the competition twin, you can see there's no pocketing in the back. It does have vents, so these slots work like the slots in a brake rotor, or the vents in a brake rotor for a vented rotor that throws air out from the center and helps keep air flowing through the clutch. Under really heavy driving, it can make some differences. I never personally experienced clutch fade with this, and I've never experienced clutch fade with this one either. Another thing I want to point out that a lot of people don't consider with clutches is the inertial differences. Even if these flywheels weighed the exact same, which they don't, having things like these really large standoffs on the outside of the flywheel increases the inertia substantially. And what that really means for your build is that if you could run both of these clutches in the exact same build and they weighed the exact same, because there's more of that weight at the outside of the flywheel, you would make more power to the wheels with the ACT Mod Twin than you would with this competition twin disc. That pretty well covers the design highlights of the ACT Mod Twin and a lot of its advantages over most of your conventional twin discs that you'll find for a 2J T56 combo, or even just 2Js and most aftermarket clutches in general. I'm really impressed with the engineering that they put into this, and it definitely shows when you're driving it on the street and when you're driving it hard. So let's throw this back in. We'll take the truck out for a spin and you'll get to see how this clutch feels on the street. We're idling at a stop. I'll show you guys how easy it is to take off with this clutch. I'm not going to use any throttle. First gear. Just going to ease out. It's really easy. Reverse. Moving along pretty quick. Super easy. I've got a pedal stop set up so the bite point is pretty close to the bottom of the pedal travel. You can hear it, but it's got a long, smooth engagement. That's it all the way until it stalls. So here's leaving a stoplight. Smooth, linear engagement. Drives a lot like an OEM clutch, with just a little bit more weight to it. I never could have done this. It would be groaning really loud. The transmission would sound like it was a metal box full of rocks. T56s are kind of known for that, at least some of the variants. Depends on exactly which one you have. But in reality, a lot of it's got to do with other driveline components, like if you have an aluminum drive shaft, an aluminum bell housing, or a sprung clutch versus a solid clutch. This being aluminum bell housing, sprung clutch with a steel drive shaft is pretty similar to how a lot of OEM drivetrains would be set up. Try to get some more flat shifts in. Zero-speed launch. Had another car coming up behind me, but as you can see, this clutch has some great street manners, and you can drive it like a full race clutch. The 0 to 60 times that I did with my old clutch versus this one are basically identical. I'm a little bit faster with the new rebuild of the truck that includes this, but the actual shift times are slightly shorter with my old clutch. So the difference is coming from how I had to set up my flat shift cuts. A lot of people focus on one detail, like how fast they can shift or weight split or traction bar setups or all that. Really, you need to think about how the whole vehicle works together. And so this clutch is something that works with my whole build extremely well, because I can street it. It's 25 pounds lighter than the race clutch that I used to run. I don't have as many miles on it as the race clutch yet, but I'm expecting the longevity to be comparable